Disney's live-action Snow White remake starring Rachel Zegler was expected to be a major success. Instead, it turned into a massive box office disappointment, struggling to gain traction with audiences and raising concerns about Disney's ongoing strategy of reimagining its animated classics. With a bloated budget, poor audience reception, and a string of controversies, Snow White has become yet another cautionary tale in Hollywood's changing landscape. This is Marks on Media, and today I'm talking about Snow White crashing and burning for the world to see. Now, let's get into it.
Marks on Media.
Initially tracking for a $53 million domestic opening, Snow White fell far short of even those modest expectations. The film debuted with only $43 million in the US and an additional $44.3 million internationally, totaling just $87.3 million worldwide. For a film with a staggering production cost of over $250 million, yes, $250 million, this opening weekend was a disaster. To put this into perspective, Disney's 2015 Cinderella remake had a much smaller $95 million budget and still managed to gross over $540 million globally. In contrast, Snow White will struggle to break even, let alone turn a profit. You also have to factor in all the advertising on top of the $250 million production budget, meaning this thing is probably close to $500 million at the end of the day.
Why?
The film's weak performance isn't just limited to the United States. It failed to make an impact in China, one of the largest international markets, earning less than $1 million in its first 3 days. With no major competition at the box office, Snow White had every opportunity to succeed, yet it couldn't even match the performance of previous live-action remakes like The Little Mermaid or Aladdin. Another major factor in the film's failure was a lukewarm reception from both critics and audiences. Snow White received a dismal 44% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and while the audience score was a more respectable 74%, it wasn't enough to generate strong word of mouth. The film's B+ cinema score also suggested that moviegoers found it forgettable rather than exceptional. In today's post-pandemic movie landscape, audiences need a compelling reason to leave their homes for a theater, and Snow White failed to provide one.
This is crap!
From the moment Disney announced the film, Snow White was plagued by controversy. The casting of Rachel Zegler, a Latina actress, as Snow White sparked backlash among those who believe the role should remain faithful to the original 1937 classic, or even the Grimm fairy tale, both of which say that Snow White's name is because she's so fair-skinned, with skin as white as snow.
It's science.
It might as well be called The Whitest Lady Ever, starring a Latina. Zegler herself added fuel to the fire with comments about how the original story was outdated and how her version of Snow White would be a leader rather than someone who falls in love. These statements alienated many Disney fans who cherished the original film. She also put down the prince, saying that he was a stalker and that he was super creepy and needed to be cut out of the film.
Weird.
Well, he wasn't entirely cut out of the film, but instead of being a prince, they made him a common criminal that Snow White has to rescue because, of course. Additionally, Disney's decision to replace the 7 dwarves with magical creatures to avoid offending modern sensibilities only created more confusion. Even actor Peter Dinklage, who initially criticized the film's depiction of dwarves, later distanced himself from the changes, further complicating the film's public perception. They also changed the magical creatures back to dwarves, but instead of hiring little people dwarf actors, they instead decided to CGI them into the film. This put a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of people. Disney has had a strong track record with live-action remakes, but Snow White highlights a growing problem. Not all classics translate well to modern audiences. And not everything needs to be wokeified. It will piss off a lot of people. This especially.
Yup!
Films like The Lion King and Aladdin thrived because they were based on beloved 90s properties with a strong nostalgia factor. However, older films like Pinocchio and Dumbo have struggled as their fan bases are not attracted to live-action reimaginings. Pinocchio also dropped during the pandemic, and I don't know who was clamoring for that movie.
Nobody!
Live-action remakes like Cinderella also remade the original movie while adding good stuff to it that fit in with the story and grew the world, instead of completely changing everything and putting it in a different direction. Compounding this issue is Disney's increasing reliance on massive budgets. The studio has fallen into a pattern of excessive spending on these remakes, expecting them to perform at blockbuster levels. However, when films like Snow White fail to generate excitement, they become financial liabilities rather than guaranteed hits. This thing would have have had to generate as much money as the original Avatar, and that's not gonna freaking happen. It was never going to freaking happen. Maybe if they would have stuck to the original story and they would have done better casting, maybe. But even then, there's no reason why a Snow White live-action movie needs to cost $500 million to make.
Oh, hell no!
The failure of Snow White raises questions about the future of Disney's live-action remake strategy. While some projects, like the Lion King prequel Mufasa, may still succeed, it's clear that audiences are becoming more selective. Nostalgia alone is no longer enough to drive ticket sales. These films need to offer something fresh while still respecting what made the originals beloved, like I mentioned earlier with Cinderella. Hell, even Beauty and the Beast did some of that. If Disney continues down this path without adjusting its approach, it risks alienating its core audience and producing more costly flops. For now, Snow White stands as a gnarling example of what happens when a studio prioritizes modern messaging over storytelling, overspends on production, and underestimates audience sentiment. It's not totally go woke, go broke, it's just a whole ball of everything went wrong from the very beginning with this movie, and now Disney is suffering for it.
Get what you deserve!
Hopefully, this is the death throes of old Disney, and by old Disney, I mean modern Disney. I'm hoping somebody finally woke up and will change directions. The new Lilo and Stitch looks okay, let's see how that one goes. Comment with your thoughts on all of this. Do you agree with me? Did you see Snow White yet? If you did, what do you think of it? If not, is there one reason or multiple reasons? Let me know down in the comments section. As always, the links to articles I referenced in my research can be found in the video description. Also, please share this video around to everyone you know, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that little bell to be notified every time we post brand new content. This has been Marks on Media, and I'll see you next time.